All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of CO Pod. I'm your host, Caroline, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, CEO of the Rollout Crew, Theo Halstead. Theo, how are you doing today?
I'm good. It's a beautiful day in upstate New York, so I'm doing amazing.
Yeah, how's the weather over there? Is it hot over there? Because San Francisco's freezing.
We got your heat because we're up in the 90s today. So,
That's okay. By all means, take it. I don't want it. Take it. All right. Well, let's just jump in here. Theo, I would love it if you could give our audience a little bit of background about yourself. The Spark Notes version of who is Theo?
well, I started in my career of technology actually in my Marine Corps days, and I just fell in love with it from those days because as we were building things out in the Marine Corps was just adopting technology. So, that kind of drove me from a technology perspective that put me down the path where I'm at today.
Yeah. And, I feel like, knowing that about your background as well, you've always been kind of on the forefront of that, technology boom, that technology trend. What's that been like? Kind of been in like being like a pioneer in that.
It's been interesting when I had the privilege, I'll put it that way, and I've kind of thought about this over and over again. I've had the privilege of being born in a time where technology started coming out. .com came out. We went from 5.5-inch discs to DVDs to USBs to the cloud. And I've been part of it since day one. And it's been amazing to understand and love the technology, where it takes us and how it improves what we do on a day-to-day basis. I think the biggest thing I got to see from the Marine Corps days was, how technology started helping communication and leaders be able to make decisions.
Oh, 100%. And let's back this up for a little bit for our audience because I know all about what you guys do and I think it's incredible. But let's give the audience a little bit of context. What is the Rollout Crew? What the heck do you guys do for construction?
The rollout crew for construction is what I like to simplify as we problem solve technology that the construction companies are looking for and bring the technology to the business and help them make sure they have the data and information to be able to make decisions. The biggest thing the rollout crew does is brings technology. So construction companies will see the shiny thing, buy the shiny thing, and want to use it. They have no idea how to use it because on staff, all they have are construction people, and they're great at building construction. What the rollout crew does is bring the technology and the business together. So we like to have the conversations with the most junior people and the most senior people, understand the outcomes and how they do their day to day. So we can take the software that they're using and select it or help them select software so they can have them and maximize the use of that software for how they run their business.
Yeah, and the Rollout Crew has always been known for its relationship-driven rollouts, really being people-centric. But what does this philosophy mean in practice? Like how do we see this in real life?
The philosophy is what we call white glove without the posh. We come to the client understanding how they do their business, and from there we create relationships to improve their current outputs and using technology and bringing that technology to their fingertips so we can take things that they used to take them days or hours and do in seconds from their iPad, from their iPhone, and be able to track things and have the data so they can make decisions and control the risk management.
Yeah, and I feel like I've seen this so many times in the industry where it's like, we have all of these new shiny technology tools, as you were saying, but a lot of people don't know how to use them. So then it becomes kind of a moot point to be spending, you know, thousands, hundreds, however much you're spending on these amazing technology products without the proper guidance.
Yeah, I would say that technology is growing pretty quickly, especially with the AI, the robotics, and everything is changing from that side of the house. That, construction companies are going to be in a land of data, land of information without any guidance. And one of the things that drives me with this company, why this company exists, and why I wake up every morning is how do I improve the technology's use within the construction world? Because at the end of the day, it's ensuring the construction companies can do what they want to do without any hindrance, without any issues, and have it at their fingertips. They are good at building construction, as I've stated before. As technology, we can come in and create the processes that understand from how they have to absorb it, how they need to use it, and bring that services to them to ensure they're getting all the ROI that they're expecting.
Yeah, I mean, technology is a huge part in that and also a huge part in scaling. You know, for a lot of these small companies, they're really relying on that technology to be able to scale their company, to be able to grow their company. Kind of how have you seen technology play into that? You know, do you have any examples of companies that you guys have helped with that scaling process?
I think the biggest thing comes to mind at this moment is I worked with a company that was trying to track the building of pipeline and across hundreds and thousands of miles. And what we ended up doing to be able to track it was create a data source that provided a very simple input from the people in the field that then translated it back to the leadership so they can say, where do we need to add? Do we need to add more people? Do we need to add more from a resources perspective, or do we need to add more equipment, or what are we missing to be able to maximize an hour's worth of day, or an hour and a day's worth of work? And we saw that as they were getting the data, they were finding out things that they weren't even aware of, even when they were in the field doing it from a manual process. So they were able to take that and make it sustainable and then improve that from a scalable perspective.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I mean, that's something they probably never would have caught, you know, just pen and paper. Like, think back 40 years ago, like, that's probably something they never would have caught and never would have understood.
Correct. I mean, we're talking somebody in the field can take 30 to 60 seconds, put in data, and that data is being populated back into a database that is creating reports and utilizing, and AI is taking that technology and saying, okay, what can we do to improve this perspective on from whatever they're doing in the field?
Yeah, and, you know, one thing I hear really commonly, I mean, not just in construction, in every industry, is people are worried about AI. And, you know, I get it to an extent. We're worried that, you know, AI is going to take over our jobs. But in reality, AI can't work without the humans. That needs those humans behind it.
Right. I mean, AI is coming up, and I get the fears that individuals have from an AI perspective. But the one thing that AI is 100% doing, it's improving what we do on a day to day basis. It's taken tedious tasks that normally take hours and putting it down to seconds, minutes that can actually improve what we're doing. And the data that's coming from this is actually helping us to tweak. It's one of my core values, failure is success. And the more data you have, the better you're able to make those tweaks. And what the construction industry is missing is that technology, is that data, and how do we get that in their hands without a huge dollar amount, without a huge loss in building out something? No one wants to go build out a technology and say, oh, we're utilizing it, but you're only using 20 to 30%. which then in turn you're not getting the ROI on the money you spent. Now you think the product doesn't work, so we need something different. As services, we come in and help them and bridge that gap for their technology to improve that.
Yeah, and that's incredible, and I know, I have to ask you this because you are the technology master, the genius, you know what's going on in our industry when it comes to technology. What are some of these emerging technologies or platforms that you're seeing come up in the industry that are just, either using AI or just innovative as hell? What are you seeing out there?
Surprising enough, recently in the past 60 days, I've been able to sit down on a board with lumber and other technologies out there that we were talking about the problems we're having in the field. And one of the major problems that we're having is resources and tracking resources and seeing where that technology is going and being able to have that at our fingertips versus okay, hey, they went through HR, it got put in a file. It's got the data doesn't have anywhere to go. It's just in a file. Oh, yeah, they worked with us for 2 years ago. Yeah, but we got to go find a file that was put away somewhere. With that data, having a wallet, having some type of technology in your hands to be able to say, hey, this individual's done this and he's got some good write ups, or, hey, I found out that he can do more in this. So it's not just the word of the mouth of the individual it's working. It's also bringing that technology to, back that up by past experience and past work. That's one of the biggest technologies I've seen recently that I'm loving because I see it in the construction industry where they struggle and from an HR perspective and tracking somebody's capabilities. That was the biggest one lately.
Yeah. And I mean, think about like what, even like 25 years ago, you see these offices just stacked almost to the ceiling with file cabinets of all of these past files and everything. And now, we have the cloud. We don't have to go searching through all those old file cabinets for all this lost information that just sat there for 20 years, you know?
Well, and I think it's also having it on your, because it's in the cloud, you have it on your phone, you have the capability on your iPad to just pull it down, look at that data and go, hey, I don't have a problem with this guy moving on and doing this. Hey, we had someone call in sick. Does anybody have this experience? Well, let me go type it in and it pulls up, hey, here are 4 people you have currently on site that can do if that's a priority of that day.
Yeah, and that's huge. I mean, I'm just thinking about, the headache that would take to do that all manually for all of those back office people. And that's just, I would just quit at that point. I'll tell you that. I'm out.
Well, it's hours worth of work, or if not weeks worth of work to get something back to say, hey, did you find that information? Can this guy do it? When you can do it at your fingertips.
Exactly. And it's so interesting. And I know I say this every podcast. I am a broken record 100%, but it is so interesting to see where this industry is going, where we are now, especially in this technology realm. Like I can't even picture where we're going to be in 5 years.
Correct. And I think that from a services perspective, where we see where we can help in that side of the house is construction companies good at building. They're good at doing what they do on a day-to-day basis. They're not the technical people. They're not the people that can build the reports and understand their language and get the most out of it. So construction companies, and it excites me when construction companies realize we need technology for one, because it's such a low thing in the construction world today. We need to understand that technology we're using, and the software companies that are building it are providing the best product ever. And we can come in and help utilize that technology for what that company needs, not from a general perspective. We focus on general contractors, subcontractors, and owners. We understand every aspect of what each one need and how that technology is going to help them on a day to day.
That's incredible. And I kind of want to switch gears here and talk about you a little bit more, talk about your leadership style. We probably have a lot of people in our audience right now who are potentially in the same position as you, as, running a company, or I know we have a lot of our audience base who is a little bit younger, looking up to people like you and wanting to be in that role. Um, so, can you kind of describe your journey to becoming a CEO? Was this something that, you always knew you wanted to do, or you kind of just fell into by chance?
Oh, I would say I fell in it by chance. Being born when I was born from a technology place gave me a path that where we are today, I would have never guessed 20, 30 years ago when I first started in the technology. Um, as I indicated before, I joined the Marine Corps, did 10 years. And at that time when I came in, it wasn't just protecting the world and doing what the military does, but it was also using that technology and how do we get the data that we need to be better at what we do to be able to do what the military does. So to be part of that and grow with that was huge. And then as I moved out of being in the Marine Corps, I moved into a government job providing them services to understand the technology, to help them pick the right software, hardware, things they needed on a day to day basis to do their job and track what they needed from where we have gone in that first 10 years of my Marine Corps career. We translate, I worked for a large services company that had that government contract. And then I started noticing that there were other aspects in the world that needed that technology, like banking industry was growing rapidly from a technology perspective. It was going onto your cell phone to watch and be part of that transition was huge. And then we moved into the fintech company and as I moved through those and being a consultant from a services perspective and helping individuals and companies utilize and adopt that software, I started to realize that there was a huge need from a services perspective. And most enjoyment I get out of that is in improving that. And then I had an aha moment that the construction world, I think a lot of people on here are going to realize or know that it's behind from a technology perspective. It is probably one of the industries that's furthest behind to date. And helping them get there was a driving force of what I felt like was going to bring, efforts and my experience to this industry that can help everyone.
Yeah, and I mean, when we think about it, it's crazy how our industry quite literally builds everything in this country. It is an incredible industry and huge, but we're so far behind every other industry in that technology adoption. It's it's almost like backwards if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, the construction world builds everything that holds that technology, holds it, protects it, and guarantees that it can be utilized. It can go from one place to another. People talk about the cloud. Well, that data needs to get there. And so you've got to lay the piping down, you've got to lay the fiber down, you've got to lay all the technology down that is needed. And these people are building our world and building our, infrastructure with, you know, not the technology. So how do we get that technology out there? How do we adopt? How do we help them adopt and utilize something that's missing today?
Exactly. It's such an interesting thing, and I could literally go down rabbit holes like thinking about this and like researching this. It's so interesting to me. But let's go back to your leadership style. So, what are some of those core leadership lessons that you've learned with managing, diverse teams, high pressure situations? How do you manage all of that?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is my background and building out my leadership style from the military was a huge aspect of how I got to where I'm at today. Being part of the technology growth and keeping my pulse on that has helped out a lot. So when I'm listening to everybody, listen to the problems or, trying to be risk management the best we can, I'm taking that time. I'm listening to the craft, no matter what the craft is. And today we're talking about construction and it's just understand the outcome. they're looking for. Understanding what they did today and how can that be improved is huge from a leadership perspective. Then, it's, listening is number one. Communicating back what you've listened to, ensuring that you heard it correctly, make any pivots to assumptions that you might have made, and communicating that back is huge. I think everybody says that communication is 95% of everything we do on a day-to-day basis. Um, fail, fail fast, and fix fast. So failure is success. What can you do? Treat mistakes as information and make the corrections as fast as you can. And then, teach, help the individual that's might have made a mistake or, identified a risk, and just teach, help them understand where they're coming from. Don't just solve it for them, but give them the tools to be better and successful. And I think today, I think my company, my team members will say that, I'm always asking, what tool can I give you to be better at what you're doing on a day-to-day basis? And is that just communicating with me, hearing my inputs, or is it a actual tool? What tool can be used metaphorically from that perspective?
Yeah, I think one of the things you really said, see, I'm listening. Haha. One of the things you said that really stuck with me was about failing, failure. Um, Failure's hard. I mean, as leaders, it's hard to accept that failure sometimes, but then if there's not failure, there's no growth. So I think, understanding that as a leader, of a team, of a company, whatever it may be, that there is failure, there's always going to be failure, but having failure is not a failure, if that makes sense. Having failure means there's growth.
100%. I think it comes with a stigma. People, think failure has this huge stigma behind it. And it's like, I'm not upset. I mean, just recently I've had to deal with my leaders, and data was not coming in. And instead of just not, not understanding the problem, I just went to them and said, hey, here's a problem. You guys are boots on the ground. Find the root cause. Just fix it. That's all that matters. So whatever it is, just resolve it, fix it, and then and that brings me to the other things that continuous improvement. As a leader, I'm always trying to continuously improve. And how do I do that? um, we're talking about technology. Data is huge when improving, continuous improvement. um, you know Milestones, metrics, scorecards, things that can be used to identify risks ahead of everything else. And we're talking about data, we're talking about technology, and every leader out there needs to know, would love to know information to be able to get ahead of a risk. And by having scorecards, by having metrics, I have seen where it improves small tweaks that I can say, okay, how do we get ahead of this next time? And, working with my team, and realizing that they're the boots on the ground. So not making any decision in a silo, asking them to provide me a solution, and then guiding them on what I see that solution can be different is, I think, the biggest major leadership thing that I have found that works on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, well, trust me, I have my AI note taker taking notes right now, and I'm going to implement all of this with my teams. This is like little nuggets of gold. So if you're listening right now, you better have a pen and paper or your AI note taker going, since we're talking about technology. But this is, when it comes down to leadership, these are everything you've just mentioned is spot on, absolutely spot on. Um, and I've had the pleasure to actually meet some of your team members and see how you guys operate. And it's just incredible the kind of people you've brought in, the culture that you're fostering within the rollout crew. Um, but sometimes it's hard to get to that point in a company. If you're growing your company, you're thinking about your culture and who you hire. And sometimes, most of the time, it's hard to get a team like that. So what do you do, to foster that culture of teamwork, resilience, continuous improvement?
It's listening to the problems and giving the team the tools that they need. Going back to what I was saying earlier, um, and not being afraid to make changes. Finding the skill set and helping those team members improve on those skills. Um, Crossover on technology where you when you have the right team members, they're looking and they're hungry and they want to know more. Well, what does this team member do? Why does that team member do this? And crossing over and understanding and educating not just our clients but educating each other, not just working in a silo, having an open door policy to say, hey, we have a problem here, and listening to all the solutions and possibilities to fix it.
Yeah, you guys are very solution oriented, and I love that about you guys. So focusing on finding those solutions and, not just in the work you do, but in your internal teams as well. Awesome. Okay, I have probably the most difficult question I'm going to ask you today. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
What was the best piece of advice you have ever received? Gonna stump you.
You know, no. A lot of things go through my mind when you ask that question. My core values for the company, the core focus of the company, and how did I get there, and what do those all mean? Our core focus being there's a better way. Our core values being we adapt, we create, we deliver. Well, to do all that, you have to do one thing, and it's listen. So I had a sergeant major back in my Marine Corps days sit me down and said, less talking, more listening. And he said, I get more done and more production, solid production, when I listen more instead of just being a dictator or not really hearing the problem. Less talking, more listening is probably the biggest thing I learned in my life.
Well, I'm definitely gonna listen to that. I'm so sorry. That was so cheesy, everyone. Wow. Theo, this has been great. Do you have anything else you wanna add in here? Anything about Rollout Crew? What you guys are doing? Anything interesting going on?
Well, we're always doing new interesting things. We're always looking at technology that can improve. Our clients are always pressing our envelopes and asking us, "Hey, how can we do this?" Every client is different. What I will say from the Rollout Crew, what we've learned is every client's different. Your business is important to you. There are guardrails out there. There's no easy button, but there are ways to make it easier on a day-to-day basis. So as I stated before, the Rollout Crew's core focus is there's a better way. And there is a better way for construction technology transformation. And what can we do to help from that? So that is what we bring to the table. And I, you know, I've talked to you before, Caroline, that, from a company's perspective, we have a lot of technology out there. There's a lot of new technology coming out daily. Every day there's something new, and AI is creating more and more and more. And the biggest thing is being able to utilize it and maximizing your use of that software. That is what the Rollout Crew brings to the table. That's what we can do and help on a day to day basis. And I love learning. I love learning more about the companies and what their visions are and implementing those visions.
Yeah, and if any of you guys are, curious to learn more about the Rollout Crew, talk to Theo. If you're listening to this and think, dang, I really need some help with my technology, I should probably call the Rollout Crew. We will put all of those links to their website, LinkedIn, emails, everything down here in the description for you. So please feel free to reach out to them. They do some really great work, and I've seen them firsthand help so many people with these technology issues, scaling their business, really making it a modern day construction company. I mean, if we want to go general, modern day. So thank you, Theo, so much for being here. every time we talk, it feels like I'm catching up with an old friend. So I really appreciate you being here. I'm sure we'll be talking very soon, anyways, but thank you
Yes.
so much.
My pleasure, and thank you for your time, and thank you for what this is bringing and the information it's bringing out there to the people that need it.
Yes, definitely. It's so important. And we love to keep our audience, informed and educated so that they can make the best decisions for their company and their employees as well. So, everyone, have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of CO Pod. We'll see you next time.